It is the second episode. We made it through the pilot, boldface, brazen, lots of technical issues, but we're here and we're doing it again because we made it.
We came through.
This is what it's all about. Rock the Boat 868, the podcast. This is episode 2. We want to say thank you so much to the people who would have listened last week. The people who gave us lots of wonderful feedback, good, bad, constructive, not bad, but you know, the good and the constructive. Sometimes I say it's more important to really listen to the constructive as opposed to just the good, because, you know.
Exactly, because we want to get better. It has to be a productive exercise for all of us.
Yes. So we want to say thank you so much again to folks who would have listened. We got some interesting feedback in the mix in terms of where people wanted to see it go. People who had questions about the kind of content that we would have moving forward.
Yeah.
If it was just about, you know, protest and militancy and that kind of stuff. But I think it's a little bit going to be a little bit of everything. Mm-hmm. All of the issues and topics that pop up within our local, regional, and international domain that have that intersect with the isms and schisms, so to speak. There was a really interesting comment that we got in terms of if it is we're going to be talking blackness and protest and militancy and social justice in particular, then we need to dial back the convent.
Well, I have no idea what
that means. Because you went convent?
I went to Holy Faith Convent in Cuba,
well, I didn't go convent.
But I don't have a convent accent. So if I have a convent accent, Abeo.
For
me, I have a convent accent?
I mean, slight. But for me, it's less about just the accent. For me, what I read into that, and I don't think it necessarily came from a place of somebody trying to be mean-spirited or anything, but I think it definitely spoke to the idea of perceptions that people have of what social justice is supposed to sound like, or voices that speak out as it pertains to things about social justice and current affairs, etc., sounds like. And then again, it also, I suppose, forces us to recognize our privilege again.
That is true. There is an important point in there about classism and perceiving certain things in certain ways, which we understand. But apart from that, we cannot also fall into the same trap that we keep criticizing, which is to think of blackness as a monolith and as only one thing. And so these two black girls are doing a podcast and therefore they should not, or they should.
Exactly. And a good friend of mine, what she said, because you know, I relayed the critique to her, and she is a Trinidadian woman who was born and raised in the US, but is back here, has been back here living here for quite a few years. So she comes with an accent. Yeah. She navigates that on a daily basis, but she appreciates the fact that, I mean, I'm quite silly. I'm very animated. I'm an actor. It comes with the territory. So you're going to get a lot of things.
You're fabulous.
With me. Girl, thanks. Girl, thanks. See, you will get a lot of things with me. And I always say, if it's for you, it's for you. And if it's not for you, we
just leave
totally
it.
Okay.
If it's not for you, leave it.
Keep scrolling.
Good. Just press fast forward, move along.
We
there
promise.
Are other podcasts in podcast universe. We will all survive.
We will promise. We promise. There will be times when we'll be very serious. There will be times when we will be shady bitches. It is what it is. Just get accustomed and deal with it. So, let's get into it. We're going to get it out your system. Today we're going to be talking with a fabulous woman, a sister from another mister, in terms of a creative, in terms of an advocate, the kind of work she's been doing on the ground in Trinidad and Tobago with young people in particular.
Yeah.
And she is a Morvant native. Mm-hmm. So she's going and talk some things. Her name is Afi Ford Hopson, and we will allow her to introduce herself and tell you a little bit about who she is and why she's here. Chukong had a way he used to say, why are you here?
Why are you here?
So we're going to get into it in just a little bit. We're going to chat with Afi Ford Hopson, and we're going to be talking about Morvant and some things as it pertains to the community. this segment, we call it Get It Out Your System. And we definitely playing on the word system in terms of things that, all things systemic.
Yeah, establishment.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And we made a point last week of saying that we didn't just want this to be our voices, or we didn't necessarily only want it to be about the very academic voices, the voices we are accustomed hearing. We feel as though if it is you're going to advocate on behalf of, then it's important to hear from the people who have had the lived experiences, and of course which intersect with people who are on the ground doing the kind of work that really is eventually at some point, we hope, make a real difference to dismantling system and establishment and making a difference in marginalized communities.
Because you continually have to ask yourself the question, who is this work for? And be certain that your advocacy includes the people, the voices of the people, meaningfully includes the voices of the people for whom it's intended.
Correct. As such, we put our heads together and I said, who would be a wonderful voice that we could include in the conversation for this second episode, but the first episode in which we invite a guest. And I thought of my girl, Afi Ford Hopson, who I will now allow to introduce herself and, you know, let us know a little bit about the work she's been doing and how long she's been doing it and where she's from and all them kind of things. Go ahead now.
Hi.
Hi, Afi.
Hi. Hi, everyone listening. First of all, my name is Afi Ford Hopson, and I would like to say thank you to Abeo and Amanda for inviting me to share and to express my thoughts on how actually living in the area of Morvant affects me as a mother and a grandmother and an educator. I am a mother of 5 children, 3 girls, 2 boys, 3 grandchildren, 1 grandson, 2 grandson, 1 granddaughter. And I have been involved in youth advocacy for the past 10, 15 years. I come from Morvant. I live High Rundle Street, which is known commonly as 4 stories. And it, ironically, Amanda and I were having a discussion before we started, and she was wondering like, why was this area named 4 stories? And it was because it's basically four floors, right? The building complex.
Yeah.
Consists of 4 floors, so we call it 4 stories.
stories.
Plain and simple.
Nice.
Yes, I have been working as a creative, as a theater and education facilitator and human enrichment facilitator with young people. I have been doing this for the past 10 years. I've been involved in the arts for 15 years. And it has been a roller coaster ride for me, an emotional roller coaster ride, because one of the reasons why sometimes I don't video record my session is because of the confidentiality that my students place in me by the stories that they tell, you know. And I think it's very important for me to say why I'm here, because I need to be here, because it affects me. Okay. It affects me, it affects my children, it affects my grandchildren and my generation to come. Right? The things that happen in not only Morvant, there's a lot of other marginalized communities, you know, who, I don't like to say oppressed communities, because the people are not generally oppressed. They exist in a system that is oppressive.
Okay.
Yeah?
What does that mean to you when you say that?
It means that the system works against them. And when I say the system, the educational system, right, the healthcare system, yeah? When they're going to apply for jobs, I remember, if I may continue, I remember when I went to, my son had just finished secondary school. mind you, I had to put, before I moved to Mova, we used to live Belmont. And I honestly did not want him to go Mova. Oh gosh, what is the name of this? Mova Laventil. Because his elder brother went Mova Laventil and he had to leave because of conflict between gang members and police officers.
Wow. This is his secondary school?
Yes, this was a secondary school.
Within the school itself?
Within the school area, because there were students who were involved in gang activities. And the approach to the police, by the police, was that everybody's a criminal. Right? And that is the reality of...
And how many years ago is that?
Well, he's 24 today. I would say 10 years ago.
So
he was 14. 10 years ago.
A today thing.
No.
This is
It
concerns that people have in terms of the interaction of law enforcement and communities and the militarization, so to speak, of communities. This has been going on for decades.
Yes.
So you had a concern that the school was being used to recruit new members to gangs?
Yes. Yes.
All right. So yes, you didn't want your second son to go to that particular school because of the experience your first son would have had.
Yes.
Right.
Right. So I automatically place on the SCA form his our Belmont address where his grandparents resided, and I don't know. They say zoning because they zone students. This is a fact, right? This is a fact. It's a reality. They zone you, right? My daughter, she got 85% in English, 90% in maths, and they sent her to Southeast. Yeah. So we placed the Belmont address, and he passed for St. Francis College, previously Belmont Intermediate. And after he finished his 5 years, he came out with 7 passes, and we decided to go jump hunting because it was the thing to do, you know. And we put down the mover. At that time, you know, even though I heard stories from other people, you know, don't put your mover address on application forms, you know. I was still brave enough, and I said, well, you know what? I believe in honesty, and I believe in being truthful to myself. I am going to put that mover address to our detriment. Yeah.
Just pause for a cause, and that's a great value to have, to be honest about things.
Yes, exactly. Right. So we put it. We sent out a couple of job applications, and ironically enough, they call him for the interview. No, I lying. We put, I am lying.
Wait, I lie.
We put his sister's address because of the conversations we were having surrounding putting mover as the, and apart from that, we sent out a number of applications using the mover address and got no response.
Right. So then you dress back and you put the sister address.
Santa Cruz,
and he got
he got a call for an interview.
Nice.
Now within the interview, now he's going along, and what would seem as if he was getting through with the job was shattered when he said, when the interviewer asked him, well, how are you going to get transportation, or is it going to be difficult for you to get transportation from Santa Cruz to Port of Spain? And he said, well, in all fairness, I actually reside in Mova, right? And he said that, so I asked him, I said, well, that's after everything. I asked him, well, what was her response, her facial expression, sorry. And he said, well, mommy, it just got quiet.
The tone in the room
changed. It got quiet, and then she went outside and she came back in and she said, well, okay, thank you very much. No further questions.
Really?
No further questions, I kid you not. She came back and she said, okay, Mr. Hopson, we would be in contact with you. So he came home, you know, thinking, well, everything is everything, you know. He came home and stuff. 2 weeks passed, 3 weeks passed, and we decided to call
Right.
the company. And they said that when he called, well, I call. I usually am the voice for them because I know how to, you know, put things together and put words together to mean something. I don't know what it means, but yeah. And she said that the position is already filled.
So what did that do in terms of his morale? That kind of experience, and I'm sure, I mean, this would have been a personal experience with you and your son,
Yeah.
but I'm sure in the work that you would have done, you would have heard these kind of things over and over again. What has that kind of experience in your personal life, as well as with the young people that you work with, what has that done to their morale and the morale of the community?
Yeah, well, that type of rejection does something to their aspiration to dreams.
Yes.
You know, it does something very severe in that their thought process turns to, well, it's better I join a gang. You know, it's better I go and sell drugs, because if I am trying, and my son brought that to me, he said, Mommy, I am doing everything right, you know.
Playing by the book.
I am playing by the rules. So why is the system against me? You know? And it's very difficult when you're dealing with your own personal children, you know, your own personal,
Right.
as opposed to dealing with children on the outside. Because when you see your child or your even your siblings, you know, going through that kind of pain and that kind of result of rejection, it does something to you.
Of course.
You internalize.
You
You internalize, you know, am I not good enough? What am I doing wrong? You start to question yourself and blame yourself. You know, you start to think that, you know, well, am I not worthy? You know, and it does something to their mental.
Especially when you are pushing against the grain. And I'm glad you mentioned previously about zoning, because we know that zoning is for the working class.
Of course.
We know zoning is for the working class, and it's worse yet when you are in particular places, like what you are telling us about here.
Yeah.
Now, we don't have much more time with you, Afi. I feel like we could talk to you for the whole 45 minutes.
Yeah.
But in terms of what would have happened on that morning of the triple Morvant murders, just give us the rundown, one, of what that morning, what that day was like for you, and what the tone in the community right now has been, and then finally, maybe what you would want to see moving forward in terms of law enforcement interaction with the community.
Right. Okay, so the afternoon, it was the morning. Yeah, I think it was going close to lunchtime. I had just finished washing and was hanging out some clothes. My two sons was in the yard, and we heard the shots ring out. Now, usually when you hear shots ring out, it's usually by rival gangs, or
is this common?
It's yes, I would say it's common.
Right.
I would say it's common. It happens not every day, but periodically. You know.
We heard shots that day.
Yeah, so we heard shots that day, and my son said, "Wow, another one gone." Right, and. I immediately told him, I said, listen, Noah, it's time for you to come upstairs. I think you'll better come in. But the youths, and they show such resilience and bravery, the youths in those communities. You know, they're very brave, you know. And he said, Mommy, oh gosh, cool it now, chill out now. Yeah.
They want to live.
Chill out, it'll be all right, nothing will happen, you know. And it's in the afternoon, we got to find out what had actually taken place, and then we saw the video.
Right.
And that was it for my weekend. That was it for my weekend. You know, I started to think about my sons. Started to think about I started to question myself as a mother and bringing them into this community to live. I started to feel guilty. What have I exposed them to? You know, and
so unfair for you.
which is so unfair
to have to put yourself
to ponder on these.
Yeah, because I think it's a situation that is so much larger than you,
yes,
or your family,
yes,
or neighbors, etc., etc. So that people trying to bear, yes, there's a certain level of personal responsibility that people have to bear, but for you to get to the point of feeling as though you are to blame for placing your children in the direct line of fire, so to speak, that does something to somebody.
And that's evidence of what we were talking about previously in terms of your internalization of this communal trauma. And I agree with Abeo, it's not your responsibility, but a larger state responsibility, because we're dealing with systemic injustice.
Yes. Yes.
Exactly. And it's there's so many things that we could pick apart in terms of what you said, doubling back to the experience that your son would have had at his school, and the fact that it could not have been a secret that the gangs had infiltrated the school system.
Yeah.
And I'm certain if you would have looked at the pass rate, the attendance rate at schools, you would be able to see that something would be amiss.
Yeah.
So then you ask questions about where do the teachers come into play? And if not the teachers, where's the principal? And if not the principal, where's the school supervisor? And if not the school supervisor, nobody at the permanent secretary at the ministry, nobody asking the right questions.
That's right.
And that's what we mean when we say systemic.
Yes.
Because people have been hearing us using it as a buzzword, but they're not quite sure what that exactly means. So I think having conversations like this with you are important because it helps people make the links from this idea of what systemic is to the real life lived experience of you home in your house feeling as though it's your fault you bring your children to live in Morvant. Yeah. It is just, you could get emotional about it.
Yeah.
Just to wrap, Afi, in terms of what you want to see, and I know that's a very big, larger than life question, but like if off the top of your head you could just say, what do you want to see moving forward, both as a member of the community as well as a creative and an educator?
What I want to see is change. For one, I want to see change from the top come down, because I know that we press for time.
Yeah.
The gangs didn't start just like that.
Amen.
They did not start just like that. They did not finance themselves. That's all I'm going to say on that.
Campaign finance reform, anyone? Let's just, hello?
When is election?
Hey, the 10th of August. Sis, we'll get to that. Sis.
Right? There are some police officers who are working for the gang members.
And you say that without apology.
And I say that without apology. Yes. So what I want to see is change. I want to see systematic change. I want to see, I want to see accountability. I want young black youths, both male and female, to have a chance, because I believe in chances. I believe that no one was created bad, or nobody was a murderer, nobody
pre-genetically disposed
a drug dealer
to being bad. Yeah.
I believe in restorative justice, and that what happened to the triple murder took away the chance of them being restored as meaningful human being in our society. Yes. So what I would want to see is change. I would want to see more meaningful and honest communication between law enforcement officers and the community members. When you're law enforcement officers, you can't come to community members as if they're guilty already, which happens, right? Come with an open mind to discuss and communicate.
Because there are so many sides to this story,
which I think
beautifully links to the name of the area, 4 stories. A very literary quality to it, and tells us about how much filling in of information we still need to do.
And it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work.
And we've only, I feel like every generation says we've only just begun, but maybe it's that each generation has a fresh set, needs to come with fresh eyes and fresh solutions. So, Afi, I thank you so much for being willing, being vulnerable, and wanting to come and to share and spend a little time with us today. We appreciate you, my sister.
You're welcome, my love.
All right, so yes, we went over time, but hey,
the things have to be discussed.
Get it out
The
the
things
system.
have to be discussed.
We
So,
said
all
get
right.
it out your system,
Yeah.
and now it is out.
Okay.
Yeah. Right?
So when we come back, we're going to remember when. And do we have a doozy for you
Oh
today?
my goodness.
All right.
Yeah.
So we made a point of breaking up the segments just so that, you know, it provides real clarity in terms of people knowing what they can expect from episode to episode.
Yeah, and just gives everyone a chance to breathe. You know, we're dealing with heavy material.
Yeah. I mean, after talking with Afi, and there's so much more that we could have gotten into. She's an excellent storyteller.
She is. She's from 4 Stories, Abeo. I mean, it comes with the territory, literally.
I can't take you. That's why people and them say from convent. That is why. That is why. Moving on. So we're talking remember when, right? And we say we must remember when because immediate and historical context is imperative when framing the conversation.
We're about facts.
Strictly. Okay. So a few days ago, probably about a week or 2 ago, we had the opening of a fantastic water park down in the Chaguaramus area and whatnot. Folks are very excited to go slip and slide and all that good stuff. There was a huge opening. I think they were saying it's something like 15 million. Actually, I think it's much more than that, you know. 500 million, my bad.
Yeah.
That it took to bring this, all the pieces, all the parts of the puzzle to pull the water park together.
During a pandemic.
There are some predictable names in the mix in terms of people who are in charge of the water park, the conglomerates and whatnot.
All the himselves.
Right. Campaign finance reform, anyone? Just saying. But I think it's very informative because the conversation since the opening of the water park has surrounded, you know, on one side people saying, how are we opening our whole big water park when it still have people in Trinidad and Tobago who cannot get a steady supply of water?
Exactly.
Right? There's that in the vicinity of that same said area. That's one. But then on the flip side, you have other people saying things like, oh, it will provide jobs and all this kind of thing. For me, neither of those angles interested me. What interested me is pointing back to a particular narrative that came a few weeks before too, where people were saying, oh, we don't protest nothing, Trinidadians, all they do protest, why all they do protest this instead of that. And I remember a time when people marched from Chaguaramus to Port of Spain.
Yes.
And it, if not dealt with this same said water park, it was peculiarly close to the context around which this water park came to be. And I want to pull from an article in the Trinidad Guardian dating back to Saturday, March 7, 2015. This is 5 years ago, written by Rachel Espinay. And it goes, what started as a march against the development of land by farmers in the Chaguaramus area. And I just want to encourage you to research where the farmers' land that was in contention is in relation to where the water park is now. That's all I would tell you. Right.
And please, feel free, check all the information.
Hello, nice, because I believe in receipts. So yes, what started as a march against the development of land by farmers in the Chaguaramus area yesterday cascaded into a forum where some citizens could air their grievances about the state of the country's affairs. Approximately 200 people marched from the Chaguaramus Hotel and Convention Center to Parliament at the International Waterfront, Port of Spain, to air their concerns over the land matter and other issues. This is what I like. A few marched for what they believed was their land. A few marched for the preservation of what they believed was a historical landmark. A few marched for equal access for all, and some marched against the government. AU. It continues, this morning is a very important morning and day in the history of the people of Trinidad and Tobago. In 1960, there was a march for Chaguaramus That was a struggle led by Dr. Eric Williams to reclaim this piece of land for the people of Trinidad and Tobago. Today, more than 60 years later, this was written in 2015, the people of TNT have to fight to reclaim once again what is ours. So said David Abdullah, leader of the movement of social justice. The farmers have expressed their grievances about being displaced from land they cultivated for many years. Today, 2020, in that same said general vicinity, we have a $500 million water park. Remember when, TNT?
Remember when. But Abeo, this Chaguaramus Hotel and Convention Center, that is not where we had Miss Universe. We didn't host Miss Universe.
Stop it, please. Just stop it, please. Just behave. Yes. Say I say. All I'm saying is, remember when.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying.
We're not necessarily saying these things are related, but we're saying it looking kind of fishy.
That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. All right, so let's take another quick break, and when we come back, we're going to ask another important, actually a few other important questions with Answer That. All right, so we have some questions that we need to ask.
Exactly. We want to know things.
We want to know, as members of the citizenry who may not have all of the information.
Yes.
It is important.
Concerned villagers.
It's important to ask certain questions. So this is a segment where we get to be a bit shady. Answer that. This week, let's give it a little backstory. I want to say about 2 weeks ago, the Goodley Commissioner of Police had a press conference, I suppose in direct response to the Police Complaints Authority, who by then would have advised him that it would have been best to suspend the officers, all 18 of them, who would have been involved in the Mova triple murder.
Yeah.
Goodley, police commissioner, thought it prudent to come on our national television to take time to pretty much say no. And as a matter of fact, I find all you shouldn't do a public press release before telling me certain things, etc. He was just very much in his feelings. And that's fair. He's allowed to have feelings. He's allowed, I suppose, to feel as though he's advocating on behalf of his officers. That's also fair, etc. But you see, I have some questions because he was starting to go down the road of statistics. Some interesting statistics that he felt pertinent in terms of what police officers supposedly face on a daily basis out here in these mean streets of TNT. So my thing is, before I ask the question, what I want to say is that the national security allocation, as at our last budget, stood at 6.44 billion TT dollars. It was 6.120 billion TT dollars in 2019 and 6.4 billion in 2018. Gary Griffith assumed office in August of 2018 and met with Rudy Giuliani on December 19th, 2018. Just tuck that in the back of your mind, right? Just tuck it away. According to police service statistics, there were 517 murders in 2018, 495 in 2017, 462 in 2016, 420 in 2015, 403 in 2018. You notice a particular trend?
Yeah.
Okay, great. The detection rate for murder was 16.6% in 2018, a decrease from 17.9% in 2017. Now, these are not things I am making up. These particular statistics come from an article in the Trinidad Express that would have been dated March the 5th, 2020. Gary Griffith proposed his mantra of one shot, one kill in December of 2018, which would have been after he would have met with Rudy Giuliani. The number of people killed by police last year rose by 86%, right? A figure that the Police Complaints Authority is very concerned about. For this year, as at, I want to say about 2 weeks ago, In fact, as at just after the Mova triple murders would have been 43, right? 43 people would have been killed by the police for this year alone, the majority being Afro-Trinidadians, right? Trends show the killings have occurred primarily in the northeastern division, stemming from 32 shooting incidents between January to June. Yes? Before I ask the question, I'd like to share this, you know. This one is from an article, December 27, 2018, from the Newsday. The commissioner reiterated, when you aim at a target, it is not to injure. And police officers are all given regular training on ranges to ensure they practice at the marked targets in the eventuality of armed confrontation. For reporters who do not know, the targets are for the head and chest shots. Bear all those statistics in mind.
Interestingly, not just in Trinidad and Tobago, but around the world, the police are able to take white people into custody without killing them. I mean, that's so interesting.
It's
bullets. I mean, apparently see skin color.
Yeah, I don't know. Apparently.
I don't know.
Apparently. Now, if it is we're going on statistics, money spent, and established measuring sticks we have used to judge law enforcement, particularly our police commissioners over the last however many decades, then please tell us, how exactly does Gary Griffith justify his performance since becoming Commissioner of Police?
Yeah, answer that.
Answer that.
And he was talking about statistics. Well,
For
we bring
the
up the
love.
statistics. Look, the statistics here. Answer that.
For the love of your Yoruba God, please. And so, you know I'm getting passionate because I believe in make it make sense. Make it make sense. If it is, when you came into office, you said, judge me by my murder toll.
Yeah.
That is what the man said.
You set this standard.
This is the measuring stick that has been used over the last umpteen years. It's a terrible measuring stick because it means that you have to think about things in vacuums, yeah? But this is the measuring stick that we've been using. So if this is the measuring stick we've been using and all you have to show is more death, blood, murder, and mayhem, particularly black death, both on the side of gang culture and on the side of extrajudicial killings.
And one thing I've always asked about the murder rate, does it take into consideration murders committed by the police?
Amanda, of course, look. Why do you think there's a whole other category for it in terms of extrajudicial killings? There's a whole other category for it.
And all of this goes back to the question of whose lives really matter. I mean,
bar lives matter, man. What happened to you? Did you hear last week?
Clearly, some people.
Bar lives matter.
Some people have no value
Didn't you hear
at all.
the people opposite the White House? See, I told you this is where we get to be shady. So yeah. If anybody,
you can imagine your full lived experience being a bar, that your life matters.
Look, if anybody have a direct number for the police commissioner, because we have one for him and we were messaging him and then he went on national TV and say how we bullying him and bothering him, although he said he wanted outcry, so we gave him outcry. Pick a struggle, decide what you want. So if anybody have a direct number for him, could you just, you know, ask him if he could, you know, answer that? That'd be great. Thanks. Let's take a quick break. So we're talking how we spending with money because we know in these COVID-again times, these black dollars and cents, they matter. So last week we started and we want to always feature every week small black-owned businesses, small family-owned businesses, small community-based businesses. And when we say community-based, we mean businesses who make a point of giving back to the spaces in which they exist. Small businesses that provide safe spaces for people within their communities and all that great stuff.
Making them crucial to the economy.
Hey you, because you know we're about that redistribution of wealth, you know. Yeah. It's interesting though that, you know, people had a lot of things to say, very much on brand, in terms of our neighborhood racists showing their whole selves on the good old socials. But you know, play stupid games, win stupid prizes. And we heard that an international brand has since pulled out from one of our favorites. Care to talk about that?
Well, apparently the starlight is getting dimmer by the moment. England Cosmetics has withdrawn its brand from Starlight. It had been collaborating with Starlight over the years, and in the last week has decided, you know what, I'm not playing this game anymore with you.
Bye, Felicia.
Because Black Lives Matter. And they said that
Period.
so clearly. They said it clearly in their correspondence. Black Lives Matter.
What is entertaining to me is that this international brand took the good time out of their good day to write, in essence, what was like a whole social media release as it pertains to exact. In case you were confused as to why we are pulling our product from these shelves, let's make it quite clear.
So corporate citizens are getting involved. When you pass by Starlight nowadays, you notice that the car parks are not full as they used to be before. And in addition to individual people making individual action to show their discontent, corporate citizens have jumped in
This
as well.
is it. I mean, for me, it's less about sometimes too how much people in the car park and more about the fact that I know that I have made a personal choice, and I think this is part of it sometimes too. It's nice to talk about galvanizing support for, I don't know, a boycott or, you know, that B word, so to speak. But I think a lot more people have just made a personal decision to be very aware of the power of their money and how linked that is to the power of their voices. And the fact that when you start to attack capitalism, and we've been seeing it in terms of how Facebook had to back down from certain positions that they were taking because sponsors decided to say, excuse, we're not doing this.
All these actions are evidence-based. People not doing things off of spite.
That's right. Internationally, I think this week the Redskins, that me ain't even too sure what sport they just play now. It's football. That's our trusting you tech guy in the background and producer. Thanks, Anderson. Yeah, Ollie, we have people and thing now. But yes, the Redskins, this is after years and years and years of fans, advocates saying that the name is inherently racist and it should have been pulled. Nobody take them on. But the minute sponsors got on board, all of a sudden now they're taking immediate action to remove the name. So all that is to say, you know, the dollars matter, and I'm so glad that we are beginning to exist in an immediate and a global community that is starting to pay more and more attention to that. That being said, the person we want, the entity and person that we want to feature today is none other than Omari Ashby and his SagaBoy Culture brand that I absolutely love. For those of you who don't know Omari is just all things fabulous. Omari of Kindred, of Kiskidi Caravan, of educator and academic. He's a lecturer up at UE. Omari has a clothing brand, predominantly t-shirts with lots of witty colloquialisms and whatnot. I from Sawa. Oops, that was me almost breaking my phone. The other day I bought one that said black as fuck. That's pretty much what it said, and I liked it. But the beautiful thing about it is you can contact Omari. He has the SagaBoy Culture page on Facebook. You can also follow his Facebook page as well as his Instagram page, and you can message him if you're interested. I got my t-shirt delivered to me. Now that is service. That's what we're talking about.
Omari has emerged as a contemporary critical thinker, and he has this brand as well.
That's right. And the brand very much feeds into his politics, so to speak. And we don't mean politics in terms of polarized, myopic Trinidad electioneering type politics. We mean politics in terms of
complex arguments that help us to think beyond narrow-minded perspectives.
And appreciate our narratives here in TNT. And I love that. So I would encourage you all to search SagaBoy Culture on the various social media platforms. Message Omari. Tell him that you're here about your brand on Rocky Boat 868, the podcast.
And spend some black dollars.
Thanks.
That matter.
Because he deserves it and we deserve it as a community. Yeah? All right, guys. So that's pretty much it, you know. We had a lot of fun today. before we go, we find it very, very necessary to just continue to say and empower some names. Some names who, over the last few weeks, have been at the center of a lot of pain, a lot of angst, but also at the center of sparking necessary conversation that hopefully will lead to important change here in Trinidad and Tobago. That is Israel Clinton, Joel Jacobs, Noel Diamond. Those are the three men who, yes, we have been terming the triple Morvant murders, but it's easy to disassociate when we don't say the names. These were three men with families, with loved ones, with stories that may be, you know.
And they are three in a long
list.
long, unfortunate line of people who died in the same way, and their deaths must not be in vain.
Must not be in vain. And their lives may have involved various kinds of trauma that are specific to these particular areas, but it is time for us to interrogate what that trauma means, how that trauma came to be, and how it impacts the rest of us as a society. We also want to say the name of Ornella Graves, the young woman who would have met her end at the protests in Sealots.
And on that note, a sister was reminding me last week about Beverly Jones during the 1970 Black Power uprising, who was also pregnant and who died in a similar way.
Wow. History repeating itself. We want to say the name of Baby Anaya, who still, even though we gave outcry and protest, still hasn't found real justice. And just personally, for all of us in the creative community, I want to say the names of Gregory Singh and Raymond Chukong, who were also murdered and who still have not received justice. All right, so that's a wrap for this week on Rock the Boat 868, the podcast. Feel free to follow Amanda on me and all the various social media platforms. To those of you who would like to contribute to our In Case We Go to Jail jar, we still haven't quite figured out the logistics of how we can make that happen in a way that is very transparent.
We need money for those shady days.
We need money for the shady days, and of course for other action that we would like to take that could really influence some positive work in various communities. But we want to do it right because, you know, we just understand that the rules of transparency as it pertains to finance for the common man is different from those who are not particularly common. On that note, have a great one, TNT. See y'all next 2 weeks.
Bye.